Yeah, I know. You're, you're only here to man the table, right? Yeah, very good. Well, let's go ahead and go into this next session. And this one, my goal is to do a little more explaining just about the opportunity that I have really outside of here to do some things internationally and then to hopefully help you see how some of those things tie in. They're not mutually exclusive. In other words, I don't view this as, well, I have this one thing, that I have to do here, and then when I'm involved in other places, it's way different. It's really not that different. It's a lot of the same kinds of work that the Lord allows me to get to do, but just in a variety of places. So hopefully I'll help some of that come across. And then I don't know what's the timing on this one.
The next one starts at 4.
But if we're done way before that, is that a problem or?
That'll give them time to finish saying whatever they're saying.
Okay, because I don't. My hope with this one is I'll do some explaining, but then I'd be happy for there to be questions if you have them.
Yeah, you can ask that.
And maybe I'll ask you some questions. That would be good. So what I kind of have titled this one is strategies for sending and for going. So probably I'm going to make an assumption here. I'm going to guess that you care about the Great Commission. I suspect you do. I suspect you do because I know most of you to be in a shepherding, pastoring type role. But I suspect that it's not just pastors or missionaries who care about the Great Commission. I think that to be a Christian is to care about what Jesus has asked all of his followers to do. So when Jesus gave instructions for going into all the nations, making disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey all that he's commanded, I take that to be a command that applies to all believers. And because it applies to all believers, it doesn't mean that we'll all carry out that commission in the same way, doing all the same things. It does mean, I think, that there's a variety in that, but it does mean that somehow or other we will have opportunities to do that, and we will seek to be obedient in that, and that we will do it in a way that at least aims for what we do to have some kind of a global impact. In other words, yes, you and I should make disciples of our neighborhoods, or let's even back it up even more intimately than that, our homes, and then neighborhoods and communities and counties and so forth where we live. But the commission itself is specific in the sense that we're to make disciples of all nations, which means I think even as we attempt to do those things locally, we're praying that they'll have a global impact. We think that that's what the Lord would have us to do. Now, even as I talk about international opportunities, there's more than one way to engage in cross-cultural ministry. That sounds obvious, but there's not just one way to do it. I would suspect that for some of us, especially in the pastoral role, we may think of ourselves primarily as senders, sending others, helping others on the way as they go and do missions in other places. But I want us to think about sending well as how might the Lord have us go. It might be that you just show up at a conference you've never been to and you're sitting there on the front row minding your own business, and the guy comes up and gives a presentation and says, "I'm trying to recruit you to go with me to Liberia," because that kind of just happened to me. But thanks for that, Bill. So, Mr. Terry, do we have the pictures? I'll do. The pictures are somewhat old, but you'll have to forgive me. I'm introducing my whole family to you because they have been on this journey with me. I mentioned in the first service, there was a time where we thought the Lord was going to move us cross-culturally, and in a sense he did. We're still in the same time zone, but there are things that are different here than from whence I came, believe it or not. I'm still in language school. But some of the ways I get to be involved with people around the globe is by doing things, like I said, that are really not different from what I would want to see happen even here at our church. When I use phrases like theological education, if you boil that down into simply educating people about the things of God, well, to some extent, that happens here every Sunday, hopefully, and every time we have a chance to be together. Now, in other ways, I'm talking about more formally the things that can happen in terms of getting people prepared in an educational sense for pastoral ministry. Sometimes it means that. Other times it means coming alongside people who are already in ministry and trying to strengthen them, sharpen them, encourage them, sometimes educate them, sometimes do other trainings. But, Josh is here. Josh is local. Once a month, there's a group of pastors just here in Hagerstown that we get together over lunch, and hopefully we're able to do those kinds of things for each other. That's sometimes I get to go to other parts of the world and just do those kinds of things for guys who don't have other pastors in their city. They'd love to have that kind of fellowship, but they just don't. I'll show some other pictures later, and I'll introduce you to some of these guys. But there's one fellow that I've had the chance to partner with over in Bosnia, and so I was in conversation with him while I was over there, and it would be about a 2 to 3 hour drive for him to go to another town and find another pastor with whom he would say, yeah, we're on the same page doctrinally. It's just so rare that now it doesn't mean that, that he doesn't have any friends in his area, but to really fight the same kinds of battles that he wants to fight, so to speak, and link arms with other people who would fight those battles with him, that's a long way to have to go to find even just one person who would be willing to do that with you. So we try to assist with things like that, as well as sometimes more formal trainings and so forth. We do this through ABWE, as Bill and Kathy also represent ABWE, but on what they call their Live Global team. So again, that has provided us some flexibility to be able to do this not just in one place in the world, but in a variety of places. And so we're glad for the teammates we have and for the mission that the Lord has given us along that way. And I would add, grateful to this church, because as I was coming here and even talking to the folks here, saying, listen, I have these other relationships with people around the world through this work that God's given us. I'd really like to not give that up entirely. Can I do that still on the side and come here and minister? And the church has very kindly allowed us to do that as the Lord provides. So we're glad for that. I can't read that. Hold on. It is closer in the back. Where did my... There it is. Hang on. Your memory bank? Well, can you guys read that?
Yes.
Good. Let me see if I have it on my... I thought I had it pulled up earlier. This might be it. I'll tell you what. I'll just do it from these other notes. That'll be fine. You'd think I'd be more prepared. I mentioned there's more than one way to engage in cross-cultural ministry. I've sort of learned to think about, even if all of us are interested, let's say, in the Great Commission, which again is an assumption I'm making, but I don't think I'm too far off in that. And even if I assume that we're all interested in engaging cross-culturally by sending people, we could do this in one of two ways. At least this is how I have been helped to think about this. Either in a traditional sense, where we're sending folks from our own congregations, and usually when we're sending those people, we're doing it so that they can partner with a missions group. They can go and be acclimated to a new country usually from the United States or from North America at least, cross a culture, learn a language, invest themselves in that place, hopefully long term, right? Hopefully, we're looking for people who will stay in one place for a long time. And when they go and do that, often what we think of is that they're going to go and they're going to establish something new there. Maybe it's plant a church. Maybe it's build a Christian school. Maybe it's build a seminary. Maybe it's do medical ministry. So build a hospital even, or a clinic, or something like that, and then have ownership of it, and then lead it, and then for as long as they're on the ground there, that's their ministry, right? That's where they are the experts, and they are the ones who have the investment and who have that responsibility. Now, there are times where that kind of ministry is necessary. So that I don't want to diminish that at all. That's a good practice, and that's what, at least when I was growing up and hearing about missions and hearing from missionaries, I think that most of the time those are the kinds of things I was hearing about. At least that's how I understood them. Was that we're going to go to this place, there's this need, we can meet this need, so we'll go and we'll adapt to them, and we'll invest our lives there, and we will be the ones to meet that need. And that is often necessary, especially if you think about a people group in the world that is entirely unreached. Okay, so if there are no believers, whether it's you're thinking a small area, it doesn't matter. Small town, big city, it doesn't matter. If it's more or less unreached, you're probably going to go to that place not knowing any other believers, and so if you're going to start ministry there, you don't have anybody else to work with. You've got to be the point person. You've got to be the expert in that sense. So that would be valuable to do in that case, especially if the goer is going to establish long-term roots there in that one place and adapt to their host culture. Now, I would call that, again, the traditional model. There's the non-traditional, or what I would call the partnership model. The partnership model begins not with a project. In other words, we're going to go plant a church, we're going to go build a school, we're going to go do this other, ministry or, business or whatever it might be. So you're thinking not so much of a project, but a partnership or a relationship. So the first step is not, let's go to this region and then let's set out there to establish some sort of center for ministry there. Instead, the first step is, let's find out who's already in that region that lives there, that's native there, who's serving the Lord there, and maybe we can come alongside him or her or them and assist in what they are already doing. Now, obviously, that is predicated upon there being somebody there who is a believer, who you can work side by side with, where there is this trust factor there. So it is a little bit of a different mentality than something that we might think of as being more pioneer, but there can be advantages, I think, even into reaching into areas that we would think of as less reached. And I'll explain some of those as we go. Now, one difference in that model is that if I come alongside someone who, and I'm thinking of, okay, even if I were to move there, because again, this does not mean necessarily doing it from a distance. We have folks on our Live Global team who again, will go and live on the ground with these partners. And I'll explain some of the ways that they do that. But think about, like, if I were going to live, and I'll use Moldova as an example. Okay, so like when we thought that that's where the Lord was leading us. We still have friends that are there. If I were to go and serve with that Moldovan pastor, and then I just show up there, and I act like the expert, and I say, "Listen, brother, this is how you need to do things. Just follow my lead." That would be a little arrogant of me, right? Because that guy is from there. He knows his people. He knows the culture. He knows the language. He's got the relationships. He's the expert, right? I'm not. So my posture with him should be that he leads and I follow, or at least he leads and I assist. He's the point man. He's Batman. I'm Robin. Not the other way around. And I want to do whatever is going to be most encouraging and helpful for him, not ask him to advance any of my priorities in that sense. Now, if we've done our homework right and we realize, okay, we can work well together, hopefully we're going to have the same priorities anyway. The idea is not to have, we don't hope for conflict, obviously. We want to be on the same page, but we recognize that the partnership is one where really that guy is the missionary more than me. I'm there to help him in his ministry in that sense. So when we talk about partnerships, we view it as a strategy for missions that prioritizes relationships with an in-country national believers who are citizens of that land where the ministry is being done. And so the goal is not to run his ministry. It's not to take over his ministry. It's rather to assist in his efforts in whatever ways are best for him. Now, that could look as different as the ministries are. So even though I've talked about my gifting, I guess I'll call it, or interest at least, in things like pastoral ministry, theological education, those sorts of things, that doesn't mean that everybody on our Live Global team has those same priorities. I'm interested in that aspect, but we have others who are businessmen, who are interested more on the education level. Maybe if I'm working with a church planter or pastor, maybe they need books, maybe they need resources for preaching and for discipleship that they don't have access to in their home country. If they're training others for ministry in a Bible school, maybe they need more teachers, like you said, to come and to provide that education. We've got some who work on behalf of orphans and widows, so they need help with facilities and staffing for those things. They need to provide physical needs. There's one guy that I work with in Romania who, yes, he pastors a church, but in his neighborhood, because of the poverty level where he lives, he's pretty regularly kind of the go-to guy for these widows and these elderly folks in his community who, like, if they need firewood in the winter to heat their homes, he's the guy they're going to. If they need groceries, he's the guy they're going to. Well, we then, because we've partnered with him, can help keep those things coming to him so that he can keep giving them to others in his community. So there's just, the possibilities are just really, they're varied, they're virtually endless, and they vary based on all kinds of things: location, I said even time of year sometimes, type of ministry, which means there's something for everyone. This is not the kind of thing where you would have to be a Bible scholar, to be involved in these things. Which I think is helpful for us in thinking about not just ways that we can be involved, but how can we include others in our church in these sorts of things. So we build our partnerships. There's very much a trust level between us and the partners. Now, I would say whichever model you tend towards. In other words, whether it's a traditional or non-traditional, both sides, I would say, need partnerships. So you think about it, even if you're going and you're starting a new ministry in a place, and you're, say, establishing, again, something like a church, a school, a medical clinic, whatever, wouldn't the goal eventually be to hand that over to a national? Like, I would think that you would want to do that, because if you don't do that, whatever your goal is, whatever your mission is, dies with you. You know, who else is going to take that over when you're gone? Somebody needs to be equipped, and the advantage to having somebody local equipped and able to do that is that they've got knowledge and access that foreigners don't have, so they're more likely to be effective in ministry, even in reaching the unreached. So, you know, I mentioned it. I don't think we have to choose between going to unreached places or partnering with nationals. Like, I don't think that's a division and we have to pick sides. An example, again, when I have had the chance to go and do some teaching for some students in southern India, you know, you realize that something like 88% of the people groups in India are considered unreached. And yet there are these guys native to that country who are being trained in the scriptures so that they can pastor churches among those unreached people groups. So I could go and like uproot my family and live there and try to pastor a church there. I could do that. And that wouldn't be wrong by any stretch. But I could also go and work with these other guys who want to be pastors in their home country. You know, it's not uncommon even in India for there to be something like you understand, there are more churches than there are pastors. You know, there's something like, at least one recent number I heard is, there's like one pastor for every 6 churches. Yeah, so you've got these guys a lot of times who are shepherding, and don't think of like big churches, but they're shepherding a group of people, you know, at this place at this week, and then that place another week, and then that place another week, and they just sort of go on these circuit ministries, and you know, what we would like to see is enough people raised up so that each congregation has its own pastor, has its own shepherd, has its own, you know, elders even. So that's an example where through those partnerships that we have, you know, we think that we're able to equip people to reach the unreached, where they can go a lot easier than I could go. And it's not that I want to shy away from going into hard places either. You know, hopefully, like, that's not my posture. But again, we think that we can be successful by learning from brothers and sisters who are in ministry in these other places. So I'll share, again, just some of these ways you can see. Now, this is actually, this is what it looks like. This is a computer screen, and there we are on Zoom. And this is where one of the ways I've been able to do some teaching is through some technology. You know, just now what's interesting is, especially with the time difference in some of these places, you know, you get on a Tuesday night at 11:30, you know, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning over there the next day, you know, so they're saying good morning to you, and you're like, yep, it is where you are. But now I did, and I don't have it in this presentation, but I did get the chance to go and do some in-person teaching with some of these students. So again, this is a chance. This is a school where it's an accredited school. The fellow who is the director of the school is our national partner there, so we get to go and you know, teach these students, again, all of whom are their goal is to continue in ministry, whether it's pastoral ministry, missions work of some kind, so we get to go and work with them. This is another school that I had a chance to visit. I've not done teaching there myself, but over in Serbia. This actually is a Southern Baptist, like IMB affiliated institution there in Serbia. We have couple in Budapest, Hungary, who are planting a church there. So again, my role with them is not so much in the sense of like formal training. I'm not, they're not taking classes from me in that sense, but we're helping them again with resources, with coaching, with mentoring, with anything that we can give them, any ways that we can give guidance to them as they seek to get started with a church planting ministry there. This is the brother that I was talking about in Bosnia. Now he is, this guy is a almost 25-year veteran in ministry. He's been pastoring there for a long time, very faithful. He's got about 50 or so members at his church. This is one of those situations where, like, I go to visit him, and I'm pretty sure I'm learning more from him than he's learning from me. I'm not the expert in that conversation. He is, but there are things like for example, they are in the process now. The building that we are taking that picture in over in his space there, they're renting it, and they have now been approved. They've bought some land, and they've been approved for their own building. They've never had their own building before. So I'm on a group with some others who are helping him think through things about it as they're planning what kind of building to build and what to use it for, and what the space should look like. And he's got some folks in his congregation who are handicapped in certain ways, and so we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. So there's just lots of ways that we're trying to be helpful there. This group of guys there on the left, I actually still do a weekly Bible study over Zoom with these guys. Now, you see Pastor Alexei and I there in the middle. The one guy next to, so you see me and Alexei there in the middle. Next to Alexei on the other side, he is not yet a believer, but he attends this Bible study on Zoom every week. And there's a couple others who've since joined. So there's about 5 or 6 of us each week. And so it's a chance for me to, there's about 30 or so members of his church, but there's not many men that come. Usually like these 4 or 5 guys are the only men in his church. So he wanted to do something that focused just on the men in his church. And so he said, could you lead a Bible study for us? And so that's one of the ways we're able to do that. And again, sometimes we'll have these guys on there who don't even know the Lord, but we're praying that they will come to know the Lord. Now, Pastor Mihai is actually, he's the one who we initially got connected with first when we were looking at going and moving to Moldova. He actually is going to be here. He's going to be in the States for about 6 weeks. They show up at the end of May. He's going to speak here at Evangel the last Sunday of May, so just a couple weeks from now. So we're excited that they get to come to the States and present their ministry with some of their supporters, and so to reconnect with them and to have our people here meet them, we're pretty excited about. So just mentioned, some of the things that I get to do. These are sort of, I guess, if you like my priorities. Sometimes it's teaching, sometimes it's just trying to care in other ways, helping with resources. So we give a lot of books away. We have people sometimes we'll have pastors who retire and don't know what to do with their library because their wives won't let them keep them or something like that. So they'll say, can you get these books somewhere? And we always can. There are people who want the resources. Some of it is training guys, guys who are not yet in ministry, helping them to be trained for ministry, all with the vision of helping these churches to be as healthy as they can. So that's my priority, but again, your role might be very different. Now, again, a group like this, many of you are in ministry in some capacity, but it doesn't matter if you're into education in other ways, digital tech, business, medical, even construction. We've got one of my good friends on our team is a film director. When I say film director, this guy literally did camera work on some of the Avengers movies. Like, he's really good. But he has, instead of going into that field full time, he has said, I want to tell the stories, not that Hollywood wants to tell me. I want to tell the stories of these people on the field. And so he goes and he, does these films or these documentaries or these interviews with them, and then we'll bring those stories back to the North American church so that we can know how to pray, how to assist, how to give, and those sorts of things. So, and the last thing I would add about this is simply that we don't really view this as all that creative of a model. We think we're actually stealing from the New Testament. Knowing and recognizing how even folks like Paul and just all of the letters that he wrote were obviously either to churches that he knew really well, some of whom he'd even established himself, or with other pastors that he had partnered with and helped to get going. And so, like, that partnership mentality is as old as Scripture, in that sense. So we're not trying to be all that creative, but we're trying to be biblical. So, and this is, I point this out to you again just to get us thinking about what might it look like for you to send some of your people in some of these ways, recognizing that when people think about missions, they may think, well, I don't know where to go. I don't know how to get started. I don't know where the needs are. I don't even know what I'm interested in. Well, like I've told others, and I've even sort of alluded to today, when I have had the chance, and even when we looked at doing this kind of work full time, it wasn't a question of, okay, I want to do something new. What else new is out there? It was, okay, here's how I think God has gifted me. Where are those things needed in the world that my gifts can fit, that our gifts can fit? And so that's the way I try to think about it for myself. That's the way I try to direct others when they think about this. So, it provides opportunities, as I said, to sometimes go and be on the ground with these folks, but technology really is amazing too, to just be able to get on the phone or get on the computer and talk and keep up and pray and stay informed. And so there's a whole array of ways that I think we as pastors can connect with people who are like us around the world, who don't have this kind of fellowship, and can provide that for them. But then also we can help our church members to know there's probably a way for you to use your gifts, because God has gifted you, and God has instructed all of us to be about making disciples among the nations. There's probably a way for you to use that giftedness cross-culturally. And it's just a matter of being aware of what some of those ways are and connecting them to where those needs are. So that's what I attempt to do in certain ways. So don't know if that raises any questions in your mind, if there's any thing that you would like to have further explained. Yes, sir.
Not so much a question. I think one of my sons, not the one that served as a missionary, but went to Japan and Philippines, and he came back just in awe, or somehow it finally hit him. Not all missionaries are preachers. Like,
Yeah.
there was somebody over there that there were a number of missionaries in that area. He was kind of like the accountant for everybody.
Yeah.
He's like, there are actually people that serve the Lord by keeping the books.
Yeah.
And somehow we as churches did not convey to our young people
Yeah.
that the gifts do look different.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, he came back, guess what I learned?
Yeah.
Not everybody, because all the missionaries that had come and shared the church, he was after the slide projectors, but
Right.
it was always, this is us with the tribal people, this is us.
Yeah.
And just realizing and challenging folks with,
Yeah.
well, brother, who's in Gambia?
Patrick Reed.
His background was business.
Yeah, he managed a woodworking
heritage, you know, not everybody, I think some of our folks, Bill, have gone with you to Liberia, Ellen, has gone done medical stuff. There's no way I could do that.
Right.
Now, my oldest son, it was kind of funny because he went with his wife to one of these, I don't know if it was Cuba or someplace else. He's an electrical engineer. He's not going to do anything medical. So he was the guy fitting people for glasses. Because he was over there and had a beard and everything else, there was a teen translating, and somebody said, could you please ask the doctor about so-and-so? And she just started laughing. And he's like, what? I said, this is what she said. He goes, I'm not a doctor. You know? Like, I'm just here because I can do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And for all of us.
Yeah.
Because my foreign mission trips, I sure didn't know the language.
Yeah.
I had to get a different ruler because they were doing their stuff in metric, you know. Show me where to nail.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, there's the fellow who's now his title is something like Regional Director of Eastern Europe, or however they divide their regions now. I don't remember. Because they do it different than they did when he started. But he's now the regional director. He's been based in Budapest, Hungary. When we went to go and visit these partners, he was who we stayed with. When they were sent out, maybe 15 years ago now, they were just invited, you know, to, hey, would you consider coming to serve on our team? And he told him, I'm just an IT guy. I can't, you know, you don't need me, you don't want me. And he said, no, our team needs an IT guy. We want you to come and maybe consider doing that over here for us. So that's what he did. Like, he didn't change his job, or, you know, he didn't change what he did. He didn't develop this new set of skills he never had before. He took what he was really good at and was able to find a way to use it on the field there, primarily initially just serving others who had different ministries. But of course, you know, the way the Lord tends to work is you get involved doing one thing, and then you realize, okay, I can be helpful to more than just these people, and the Lord opened a lot of doors. And so now he's literally the regional director, you know, over however many countries in that. So it's just, you just never know. I would be curious, like, from your perspective, I mean, it sounds like a lot of your experience has been not necessarily doing the same kinds of things, like the Lord has, you know, shown you, I mean, ways to incorporate lots of different people into what you're doing and lots of different places too. I mean, anything you would add to this or clarify?
Similar to yours.
Okay.
So that I've only ever partnered with nationals.
Yeah.
So I've never been a part of actually a team of Americans.
Okay.
So I've only ever partnered with nationals.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that was innovative. But compared to the traditional model, it is.
Yeah.
And so the same thing happened to me when we knew we wanted to go to Liberia and help Liberia. And we had been in Liberia a lot. We knew the ministry there. We knew the people there. And when I came to ABWE and said, I think I can actually help Liberia better by not living there, they explained everything you just explained.
Okay.
And they said, this is the new wave of missions. And I'm like, I didn't know it was a new wave. It just worked for me. You know what I mean? I mean, literally,
Yeah.
just what you said. It took my skill set, and part of my skill set is fundraising.
Yeah.
So that is part of my skill set.
That is an important one for a missionary. That's one
well,
that I didn't have.
Well, it isn't for everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Some people's, it's a, what do you say? It's just, you have to live through it.
Yeah.
But it isn't for me,
Gotcha.
because I've done that
Yeah.
for years.
Great.
So I'm in a poor country, one of the poorest countries in the world, so they need the financial help.
Mhm.
But it isn't just sending money over there, it's all the fronts that we're working on. Every one of those ideas didn't come from Kathy and I. Those are all from the Church Association. So the Church Association, when they had us come, or when we said we wanted to come and help, they didn't even know what to do with that. And I said, here's the problem. Because I met with the leaders. I and say, we want to help. Every church and every pastor will say, we need new tin on our roof, and we need new tile on our floor. They all cracked up laughing. They said, exactly. In other words, you'll get sucked down a rabbit hole and you'll never come out again. It's one of the neediest countries in the world. You could meet one person and help that person and their relatives for eternity, and it'll never end. So I had to say to the church association, we can say to the church association, you tell us, you're in the trenches, what are your priorities? How do we expand the gospel, evangelism, the church?
Yeah.
And so it really got them to really have to think together. How do we do this instead of just going on one friend? So, for instance, when I go into Liberia, I don't give anybody my contact information. Anybody. You want my contact information? You contact the church association. I don't give it out to anybody. You said that, boy, that sounds, if I do, guess what happens? You may not know, but in the U.S. we have money trees, and all we do is go to the money tree, take the money, and send it overseas. That's the mentality in every poor country.
Yeah.
So every person in that country wants to be my friend.
Yeah.
But I only work with the church association. But just what you said, in terms of leadership, I am not the leader in a room full of the church association leaders.
Yeah.
Now, because I'm a white American and I love them and I've had a relationship with them, I am a leader.
Yeah.
But it means they're the ones in the trenches. They know what they need, and that's what you said, and that's right. They know what we need. And if I insert myself and say, this is what I think we need to do, it's exactly what you said. It'll be a ministry that will be started and it will die.
Yeah.
So I'm not a leader. And so even like when we have problems, sometimes we have problems working with certain pastors or certain leadership, I say to the leadership, I'm having problems with this person, you know, because I have some questions maybe about where they're at, could be theologically, could be practically, or even trust. And I say, I need you to look into this for me. Otherwise, as a powerful American, I just turn to him and say, hey, get rid of that guy or I won't work with you. And believe me, that person would be gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a real, it's not, I don't think the word is humility. The word is, it's a real partnership. But even nationals aren't used to partnership.
Right.
They are used to colonialism. They are used to the white man coming in. He's got the money. He's got the expertise. And so when you come in the way that you're coming in the way we're coming in, the Liberians love it. Because all of a sudden it's, wow. And I don't want to say how the sausage is made on the field, but I'll just tell you one story. The house that we're staying in, the leaders of the church association, these are important leaders in that area. One of them walked into the house that we're staying in, and it was a missionary house for years. He walked in, he's looking around the house like this. And we're like, what's he looking at? You know, is something wrong? He said, I've never been in this house before. Never. So you're not only breaking new ground in terms of it's true partnership. And this, I think, is going to explode the church into a new time when you are empowering those who are in the trenches. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So praise the Lord you're doing it, but I would say, and you know, you're here pastoring too. When I come back into the U.S., I'm dying to pastor again because of my experiences in Liberia. But just God doesn't have that for me right now. But I'm telling you, even the things they're doing in Liberia, some of them aren't that innovative. They're actually old things that we did years ago that we stopped doing because we know they don't work here. You know what I mean? We come to conclusions sometimes that are not actually accurate.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're doing some really old-fashioned stuff that's working like crazy. And so anyway, it's a tremendous thing. And by the way, if someone said to you, Bill, is someone mentoring you? My mentor is one of the Liberian pastors.
Yeah.
Who's better educated than I am, who knows more than I do. And he would probably say I mentor him at some level, but actually he's mentoring me. And when you do go into these countries, yes, sometimes the level of education is lower, understand this
Yeah.
is a new move, because you were right to mention it, but a lot of missionaries, go through language training, they go over to that country, and they leave 3 years later. They spent 3 or 4 years, 5 years getting ready, and then they didn't even make it in the culture.
Mhm.
And so it only even makes sense to partner with nationals because they know the culture
Yeah.
already. And I'm not putting down, you're exactly right. The unreached place
Yeah.
needs to have that pioneer missionary. But we can get away with not being pioneer missionaries because, let's face it, we're Americans and the world language is English.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can walk into almost any country, as backward as that country is, and there's someone there who speaks English who
Yeah.
can translate for us.
Yep.
So I hope I didn't go too long, but that is a tremendous opportunity. I'm glad the church is letting you do that. And of course, many churches are doing that, but they're doing it officially with you.
Yeah.
You cut the
Yes.
deal with them.
There you
If
go.
I come and pastor, would you let me do this? And of course, they said yes. But thankfully, a lot of other pastors are doing this as a part of realizing that foreign missions is a part that enhances their church ministry here in the U.S. So, sorry to go on about that.
No, that's excellent. Should have just had you give the presentation.
No, you break down the line.
Well, and I'll add one more story to what you said, and that is, so this brother who is the director of the Bible college over in southern India, this is just to show you his level of, on the one hand, humility, but also his deference to, us, we'll say, as Westerners or as Americans. I asked him, I said, okay, so, or because he was telling me, I'm nearer to the end of my ministry than the beginning. And so I said, well, who do you think you'll hand off the school to? Do you have somebody lined up? And they've got good faculty. They've got other, it's not just visiting people that'll come. They've got others who are there regularly. And he said, I really think that what our ministry needs is somebody to come from the States and oversee this because, they would really be able to do a lot more with it than I do. And I said, I think you're exactly wrong. You like what you're doing. Nobody could do what you're doing. Like, this is your place. This is your ministry. And again, like, I don't want to ever shy away from anybody who says, listen, we need you, or we need Americans or whatever to come and to assist. And so again, like, if that invitation were there, hopefully we would pray about it, look into it. Like, maybe the Lord would want us to go and to, live somewhere like that permanently. So the answer is not always, no, I'm not going to do that. That's your job. But what I tried to remind him of is I said, listen, you have had such an impact on students. There's going to be somebody who's graduated from this school who can take it over and do what you've done here way more effectively than if anybody came from the States, no matter what their expertise level is in higher education or whatever. Like, this belongs to you, and it needs to continue to belong to you guys. We will still, like, our commitment, like, this partnership is not just we'll drop you when we're done. Like, no, this is a commitment. There will be people, more than just me, who will continue to go and work with this place long after any of us can. That commitment is there. We'll come and be helpful, but as far as the ownership of it, like, this is yours. If we took ownership of it, we would mess it up. We don't want to do that. But some of that it's his posture. It's the mindset of we can't do things as well as, because they see big seminaries and they see huge theological libraries in the U.S. and they think, if somebody from the States would come and do that here, we could have that. And it's like, that is, and so it's just a reminder of, listen, we're here to help you. We're committed to helping you. But this is yours, and so that's an example, of what you.
Which reminds
Go
me
ahead.
of sustainability too, and I just want to.
Yeah.
There's a sustainability myth, in my opinion, that's out there right now. It's something we overlay on foreigners, but we don't accept it ourselves. So imagine this church. If I said to your church, you can't survive by people just giving an offering. You guys have to buy land, plant a farm, and those crops you have to sell So if you said that, if you stop giving, would some of those churches in India cease to exist?
Yeah.
The chances are, yes,
Yeah.
they would cease to exist.
Yeah.
That's okay. God works. If I told you half the people in your church were gonna stop giving, would your church cease to exist? Probably.
Yeah.
So I'm just laying over another thing, so
Yeah.
the lifeline that we are to them,
Mm.
we're not trying to hook, we're not trying to have strings attached
Right.
to that money. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean just what you said. But a lot of people come by with foreign missions and say, we're gonna help you once. And you need
Or
to
we'll-
come
or
up with
we'll
a
help
plan
you
for
f-
sustainability.
yeah.
You need to make this $10,000 last for the next 10
Yeah.
years. Well,
Or
can
we'll
your
help you
church make
for 3
$10,000?
years, and then after 3 years, you better have it all.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really unfair
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
Because we would never do that.
Yeah.
If someone said to your church, well, I'm gonna give you guys $50,000, and you're gonna have to fund the youth group for the next 10 years with $50,000, would you take the money? I mean, I don't know, but it's told to foreigners all the
Right.
time that
Yeah.
that's what you must do. So
Yeah.
I'm just praising you because, and I mean this, because you get it. It's okay for us to long-term fund things overseas.
Yeah.
If I didn't believe that, I'd never do this childcare thing.
Yeah.
You know, because then people say, well, you're getting them, what's the word? It's toxic charity because they're relying on it.
Yeah.
Well, tell Salvation Army they've been relying on toxic charity for the last 200 years. You know what I mean? Or your church has been relying on toxic charity for the last 100 years.
One of the beauties of, at least I find it a good thing with Live Global, is that when we have these guys who are official partners, so our brother pastor in Romania, or this director in India, or the pastor in Moldova, when these guys are official partners, they have their own account. So you could, if you didn't want to fund ministry through through an American missionary, you could fund it directly to them, and that helps provide them the kind of salary then, or that they need, and ministry funds. So that, like, this guy who's coming from Moldova here in a few weeks, he's here because he has supporters in the U.S., supporting churches and individuals in the U.S. He's going to be visiting them, reporting to them, I'm sure seeking new support, for other things he's got going on, but that allows him the freedom then to focus on ministry while he's there, so that he doesn't have to have some sort of pig farm or whatever else on the side to, now, well, anyways, there's more I can say, but that's the idea is that, yes, you could, churches could then, in a sense, almost bypass the American missionary directly, and like, I'm okay with that. Now, I have an account with Live Global, right? Because again, with the work that we're doing with them, with the travel we get to do, with the resources we're trying to raise and send out, like, I'm supported in doing that, so I'm happy for people to support me in doing that. I'm not ashamed to admit that. But if somebody says, well, no, we want it to go directly to this or that ministry, this or that person, there are ways that happens as well. So, anyways, okay, nearly 4 o'clock. We took that entire time. How about that? It happens.